Soon.
Live!
Yay!
Yay!
And there's Dustin's kid screaming.
He's sad.
Hey, folks, we are
Make
live.
with the music. Make with the music.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. The show's starting. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin podcast, your source for IT news, commentary, and a healthy dose of paranoia. Hey, folks, welcome to another fine episode of the Iron Sysadmin podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and as usual, I am joined by at least two of the three co-hosts that usually join the show. We got Dustin. Say hi, Dustin.
Hello.
So then I trample you when you say hi. Yeah, good. And Jason.
Hola.
Who has moved the angle of his camera so I can't see the pink wall.
Oh, I've got a whole new setup here, so you know.
New.
Look, my cable
reorganized.
is run and properly taped down, well, Velcro down, and new monitors and new angle. It's a whole new world in here.
Listen, if you guys can see, I just got like a freaking bug fell on me. This is the problem with recording in an attic.
Patreon is open if you want to give and move Nate out of the attic. give generously.
Where did it even come from? It's not like I'm in some unfinished attic here. Oh, well, whatever. Okay. I'm gonna be all paranoid all show.
I can't wait until the spiders get up there. I mean,
yeah, right.
They all kind of say, "Hey."
What I was trying to say is, if you guys could see the terrible mess that is cabling on my desk, you would appreciate that Jason said his is all clean, because mine's just all over the dang place.
Well, hidden behind the monitors now, but it's actually much cleaner than what it was.
Oh, well, yeah, hidden behind the monitors. I guess that's good enough, right?
You don't look back there. I mean, I do, but you know.
Why are you looking behind my monitors, dude? That's weird.
Someone needs to.
It's warm.
How did you get in?
He comes in with the stray cats.
Oh, God.
So anyway, folks, I think we're here to record a show, right?
Yep.
So, do you guys get that nice, comfortable feeling when your browser URL bar turns green?
No, that makes me think the browser URL bar is sick.
Oh, maybe it is sick.
Good observation.
Remember that cool ad campaign that VeriSign had? That Meet Me at the Bar campaign? I have a T-shirt or a sweatshirt or something from that.
Oh, wow, you're taking me back.
Anyway, you guys are familiar with the extended validation certs, correct?
Yes, I'm sure you've heard my extended validation rant multiple times.
Because extended validation is most certainly better than just standard encryption on standard certificates, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's see. If you create a local cert by yourself, self-signed, it's how many bits of encryption is that?
Whatever you want.
Well, that would depend on how many bits you put in your key, right?
No. The cert itself is only 128 bits. It's only 128 bit
right.
encryption.
Okay.
Oh, sure,
right.
Sure.
So now you go to GoDaddy and you get their, maybe GoDaddy is a bad example. You go to Namecheap and you get their $10 like cheapo cert, and that's that increases your 128 bits to 128 bits, and then you get the really high end one where they totally ensure you that it's really, really secure, and you'll get 128 bits.
But you get
if you spend.
You get a free put on your website to say that you're extended, you're validated, and
no. We haven't hit the Eevee yet. You haven't paid the $300+ for the Eevee cert, and they haven't given you the proctology exam to prove who you are. And by proctology exam, I mean, and I did this not too long ago. Eevee cert, to verify a company, I had to show them my Yellow Pages entry.
That was it?
I'm not kidding.
Was there more to that?
It was the typical like email to Hostmaster.
Yeah.
And then I had to have an entry at yellowpages.com.
That's it. That's how you
Yes.
get an EV cert? Wow.
And then they
Wait,
sold
wait.
us an EV cert, which increased
How many bits of
100
encryption was that?
128 bits.
Wow. Were the bits green though?
That's
Yeah.
That's all.
Nobody noticed.
So yeah, we've gone on a few times about EV certs. I mean, I get it. The concept of an EV cert is fine. It's supposed to validate the identity of the person purchasing the cert. And that's the whole reason that self-signed certs are considered insecure, and EV certs are supposed to be this awesomely secure verification, correct? Even though the encryption itself, the algorithm, the number of bits, and all that are pretty much the same. That's all SSL or TLS is TLS. So the whole thing behind EV certs is about image, correct?
Yep.
Can we agree on that?
It's supposed to be about a verification that you are who you are.
Right, but what it comes down to is how your certificate looks on your site, because the average person doesn't understand anything behind how TLS works. They don't understand what a self-signed cert is. They don't understand what a standard cert is. They don't understand what an EV cert is. They don't understand the difference between GoDaddy and VeriSign and, you know, whatever CA is backing you. They don't understand what goes into verifying a certificate. All they see is the URL bar either says HTTPS with a little lock next to it, or it doesn't. Or they got a browser warning when they went to your site that says, this cert is not not signed, or it's not publicly signed, or I should say verified by a CA. And then, of course, the extended validation certs. The whole concept was all the browsers supported this thing where they turned the URL bar green and they put the name of the company that is identified by the certificate in the URL bar. So that is really what makes an EV cert valuable, correct? Whether you buy into that or not. Can we agree on that? Have we established that?
We can agree on that, but
we've established that. Now,
the functionality, yes.
What do you think happens when web browsers stop respecting the EV certs and stop making a big deal out of displaying the fact that an EV cert is an EV cert?
How dare they?
Well, what happens is it loses.
I'm kidding.
It loses the image.
Well, sure, it loses the image. It loses the quote unquote sense of security, right? But it's really not changing anything other than a visual entertainment. I mean, there's really nothing that's changing. So let's deprecate them.
Right. Well, that's the point, though. That's the point that Troy Hunt is trying to make on his website, and we've linked. I guess you call it a blog entry or an article that he wrote about extended validation certs and how browsers appear to be slowly but surely lowering the visibility of EV certs. You know, there was a time when it was very obvious when you were on a site that had an EV cert.
Yep.
Then slowly but surely, browsers have reined that back in. It's not like the blinking green bar anymore. Now it's more or less like, oh, well, the name of the site is green.
Well, I mean, if we look back at when this started, I think initially it was really like an eye candy for people. Like it really did give a lot of people who were maybe not as versed with how it worked a sense of security. But I mean, if we fast forward to now, you know, there's always been initiative to HTTPS everywhere, right? So
yeah,
I think using that as an example, as well as, you know, security awareness, not that it's a perfect thing or something that everybody understands, but I think there's more discussions about it, and there's actually resources available to people that if they're interested in it, they can actually, you know, get a very high level understanding of what's important. And I think, you know, that's not just the people that work in the industry, it's people in general that are becoming more technologically versed, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So
I think over time, SSL certs. So if we go back, like early 90s was when it was the first SSL cert that I applied for and got. And this was if I remember correctly, it was back when certs were 56 bits.
Wow.
Didn't they start at 48? That's as far back as I can remember. 48.
I can't remember. It was not 128. It was much less.
Anyway, I can remember like the race as that was getting higher and higher. Yeah.
The process to get that certification, to get that SSL cert was, I mean, I make fun of what we did for the Eevee cert, but for that cert, we had to prove, because it was for a company, we had to send them letters of incorporation. We had to show them that the company was a real company. We had to send them information on company letterhead. They did background checks on us. Like it was pretty hardcore. So when you got an SSL cert, it meant
something.
It was like they vetted you.
Yeah.
Not to say that you couldn't get through that really easy, but they at least did some serious vetting on it.
Yeah.
As the years went on, it became easier and easier because a lot more people wanted them. And then they came up with these different levels of SSL certs. Where and what they would do if you for people that really care, if you view the certificate in a browser, you can look at who signed the certificate, what it's signed for, and like there were different levels. So one level was you would just see that GoDaddy signed it. Another level you would see that GoDaddy signed it for, Noble. And at another level, you would see that GoDaddy signed it for Noble Markets, and there would be more information in there, like whatever. And then on and on it went until you got to this Eevee thing where certs in general were like, what is, like, we can't tell the difference between these different levels. Now we need to show it on the screen. And that's where they come up with these green Eevee certs. The problem, of course, was they tried to make it like this big secure thing that nobody could get to, and that you had to really jump through hoops to kind of do, and only certain SSL vendors could give them to you. But in the end, it's the same level of encryption as any other cert, and the average person on the internet doesn't care. Like they barely look for the lock, let alone whether or not the URL is green.
Yeah, so I mean the point of SSL isn't necessarily just the encryption, which is kind of what I was trying to get at with my earlier, digression into the various levels of certificates, or my lead up into the article. It really is, I say image, but it's more or less about I don't know the word I'm looking for. It's about impression, right? So you go to a cert or you go to a page and you're going to buy something, and if that page has HTTPS in the URL, and you see the little lock, we've all been trained to say, okay, that means I can trust the information that I'm sending to this to the site because it's encrypted. But then all these other levels of extended validation, I don't know that people fully understand that to begin with. Right? So if I'm average, buyer on the internet shopper, and I see that the URL has HTTPS and the lock, I think, okay, I'm safe. I don't know that I would really notice if the URL was replaced with the name of the company or who validated it, or not replaced, but supplemented by. I would just see that it's secure, right? I don't care about the ad campaign that goes around it. So anyway, I guess browsers are starting to fall in line with that, saying that, people don't really care. And also, a lot of the biggest sites, this is another thing that Troy calls out in the article, a lot of big sites like, places you never heard of, like Google and YouTube and Facebook. And I don't know what Baidu is, but apparently Troy considers it a big site. Wikipedia, Twitter,
but Baidu
Amazon.
But Baidu is the Chinese Google.
Oh, okay. None of these have Eevee certs. Oh, he included Yahoo. I don't know why he'd bother.
Why not? A lot of people still have Yahoo accounts.
Reddit doesn't have an Eevee cert.
Reddit.
Yeah, so like it seems like people who have Eevee certs are people like Komodo.
Well, of course they're going to have an Eevee cert. It doesn't cost them anything.
Yeah, that's the example that he uses when he's showing off how the URL looks in different browsers. In fact, he shows a version of Chrome, I think this is. I don't know what it's running on, but the
Windows.
HTTPS URL, it's not colored. It doesn't display that it's Eevee. It's just plain old URL, https://www.komodo.com. it doesn't look extended at all. So yeah. Troy thinks that Eevee certs are dead. I don't disagree with him. Should we move along? Have we
Nope, I
beaten
don't
Eevee
disagree
certs
either.
yet?
Agreed. It's a dead
Okay.
topic. Let's move.
A dead topic. Okay. Jason, I think this one's yours. It's all about the Bitcoins. You probably understand Bitcoin better than the rest of us.
Oh, yeah.
Hope you do.
The coin is it's bad, very bad.
This uses
so
a blockchain, right?
Yeah. So
Hey, blockchain's great, man.
as it turns out, this is going to come as a shock. So I'm glad you guys are sitting down. As it turns out, Bitcoin has bugs too.
No, it's software. It can't have
and-
bugs.
And what's really interesting is that, well, there's a couple different aspects of this one. One, this was kept very quiet until they fixed it because it is like really severe in that you can duplicate transactions, which means that you can basically make Bitcoin appear out of thin air for no cost.
Awesome.
That's handy, actually.
And
it is quite handy.
It goes back to version 0.14. I'm not sure when that was released, but it's probably at least a year, maybe more. So that's pretty bad. What has sort of come out and is interesting, and I haven't confirmed this, but what I was reading elsewhere was that they kept this really quiet until they fixed it because obviously they don't want people taking advantage of it.
All right.
But there was a plan that if it did get exploited, that they would somehow roll back that particular block, which I find
that's
really weird since it's supposed to be immutable.
It's
right.
That's
I'm
like
not entirely certain
disturbing that
how they
they're
would do
able to do that. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know that I mean, I don't know if they can or not, but yeah, these things happen. So they rolled out a new version. I guess the core miners upgraded pretty quick and got onto the new version. To my knowledge, I haven't seen anywhere that this was taken advantage of. So it was a bug that kind of went unnoticed. But yeah, this sort of stuff happens. And again, to make matters worse, any of these crypto coin technologies, you can't unroll. So once the coin moves or once the coin is obtained by somebody, you can't click undo. Like it's gone.
Yeah, but it's just bits. You can just make another one, right?
Yeah. No, that's sort of the point.
So funny.
At least for certain coin, that's sort of the point.
Haha, certain coin. Anyways.
Yeah, I'm trademarking that right now. I own certain coin, so nobody can use that.
Oh, okay. Are you going to have your own currency now? Certain coin?
Yeah. All you have to do is take a word and put coin after it.
Hey, Jason, I will give you 500,000 Dogecoin.
For one certain coin?
Yes.
Okay.
Done. It's actually, Dogecoin, we laugh. It actually does have a little bit more value than it used to.
Let's see. Current price.
Coincap.io. That's your place. Shout out coincap.io.
So we're gonna find out what Dogecoin is worth. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. It's worth 0.05 of a penny.
Yay!
Yay! Hey, don't laugh. I actually owned Dogecoin from a couple years ago that I actually made a profit on.
So I will happily give you one certain coin for your 500,000 Dogecoin, which I will then immediately sell and have almost $3,000.
Yay! So there, I could buy you for $3,000. I could buy a coin for $3,000.
Yeah, we're setting the price of certain coin already.
Perfect.
Okay. Anyways, that was fun.
Yep. So that's Bitcoin. Bits and coins and stuff. In other crazy, ridiculous news. Have you heard about the Linux kill switch?
Yeah.
OMG.
Kill switch might be kind of. I don't know.
No, they're totally going to pull the kill switch.
It's not like there's a button in your kernel that will turn off
Yes, there is. Don't say anything. Shh.
No, they're gonna all these developers are gonna pull their contributions out, and the Linux kernel is gonna be nothing
Yeah.
again.
So
I don't
hang on, let me
Uh-oh.
find it. Let me find this here. All right. So this is oh wow. I mean, consider the source of this article. It is from lulz.com. Are they are they a good source for news? I don't know.
They're
Their
laughingly reliable.
their certificate is not extended, so I don't know if I can trust them.
That's true. That's a
It's
good
just
point, Nate.
Plain old cert. I mean, these people are obviously crackpots.
You're suscepting our viewers to non-Eevee certs. I cannot believe this.
Right.
I feel broken.
So, maybe you guys have heard that the term code of conduct has been sweeping the technology world between conferences and groups and now the Linux development team or developers for Linux for the kernel, I suppose.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know all the backstory. Charles had actually brought this to our attention, and then he wasn't able to make the show tonight, but it seemed like it was worth chatting about anyway. So I kind of wish Charles were here to chat a little more about it, but I think we will try to do it justice. So basically, there's apparently a bit of controversy surrounding a new code of conduct that has been sort of applied to the Linux kernel community. Stop me if I'm getting this wrong, guys, because I only skimmed this article. It's quite a long read. There's a lot of backstory in here. It's included in the show notes. You guys can feel free to read through it. But apparently, some folks disagree with the code of conduct that has been applied, or at least the wording of it. Some folks that are involved in the Linux community apparently don't fit into this code of conduct.
Yep.
Come on, guys, agree with me.
Yep.
I'm floundering here. And because of that, several folks have said that, and then this is from the article here, it says, contributors can at any time rescind the license grant regarding their property via written notice to whom, or to those whom they are rescinding the grant from. This is all very legalese, but apparently it comes down to GPL version 2 does not have a no rescission clause. GPL version 3 apparently does. I guess this means that the kernel is under GPL version 2.
Yep, and has been for a long. There was a big debate when GPL 3 came out about the kernel, and they opted to continue with 2.
Right. So what this comes down to is these developers, if they do not agree with the code of conduct and would either be ejected from the community or could choose to leave it, can then say, I'm taking my ball with me, which would mean their contributions to the Linux kernel, which would apparently cripple Linux. The whole kernel could essentially be, maybe not the whole kernel, but very large pieces of the kernel could be left unusable.
It depends.
It depends.
It honestly depends on.
Of course it does.
Who it is and what they've contributed and what they decide to pull.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I mean, I'll start with code of conduct isn't a bad thing.
No,
I don't
agree
believe. I think there's a lot of gnashing of teeth and jumping up and down about this lately because it seems like and whatever, send me hate mail. It seems like the code of conduct is often used as a bat to bludgeon people.
Jason, if people want to send you hate mail, we don't know your email address to do so.
That's probably
it's go@fuckyourself.com. So
sorry, continue.
Bill at Microsoft.com.
And so those that know me know that I don't necessarily feel that, like, whatever.
You guys are trampling each other, trying not to talk and go over top of each other.
It's perceived sometimes as a bludgeon, as a weapon used to bludgeon people that you don't like or you disagree with. What I'm seeing on the Linux mailing list, and I read a little bit, and I don't have the time or honestly care enough to read all of this. But there was some absolutely ridiculous nonsense about women and how they should be in the kitchen making food, and all they're good for is making babies, like all this stupid. And then religion came into it. Like, just, I don't know if this was people sniping at each other or making stupid examples for the sake of making stupid examples, but that sort of nonsense is why people end up coming up with these code of conducts, because
Right.
people can't act like adults.
Yeah, so I mean, the bottom line is there are a lot of communities, especially online, and I'm not going to pick out any specific one, that are filled with hateful people. They're filled with people who, and maybe hateful might not even be the right word. They're full of anything from bigoted people to hateful people to just flat out. They get that anonymity of being behind a keyboard, and they think they can just be a dick to everybody.
Yes. Yep. And look,
they get away with it, especially in cases like, say, a Linux kernel developer who develops good code, who puts a lot into the kernel, right? They're not going to kick that guy out, or that girl, or whatever. They're not going to kick that person out because they're contributing good code, and they'll just deal with their quirks, as you might call it. Well, slowly but surely, those groups that are considered quirky are becoming targets for folks who feel like they're being attacked. Right.
Right.
And so so, you know, a code of conduct shows up. These people are expected to fall in line with the code of conduct. Maybe they don't agree with it because, oh, I got away with it this long. Why should I fall in line now?
Right. And a lot of this happens because, look, these areas are getting more diverse. Right. The Linux kernel was started by a white guy and continued to grow as a bunch of like introverted hacker types with poor social skills. And clearly that's not everybody, but
yeah,
like, go to, I mean, look, we're going to be headed to DerbyCon next week. And like, if I walked in there to the 2,000 people that are there and said, who here is introverted and has social problems, like social, like poor social skills, probably 2,000 of them would raise their hand and say, me.
Yeah.
You know, and the other 500 are cowering in the corner because they're scared of talking. Right. So like, it's a thing in tech. Like a lot of really geeky, nerdy tech people are introverted and scared, and like, it's just, people are different. And being anonymous or pseudo anonymous on the internet, where you're not in somebody's face having to talk, people grow these artificial, you know, bravado. And they get nasty, especially when you're talking about something passionate. I mean, how often do you get in a conversation about something that you're passionate about and that you believe in, right? Yeah. Like tech alone, like you and I have had very heated conversations about tech because you believe something, I believe something different. It happens.
That's kind of why we started a podcast.
Right. But doing it face to face, at the end of the day, we can go out and have a beer and still be friends. If we're online,
oh right, yeah,
in a pseudo anonymous relationship where we never get together and we're never seeing each other face to face,
yeah,
it could devolve pretty quick. And it does.
You develop this image of the person you're conversing with, that they're just like this outright demon because you don't see the other side, you don't see the humanity. Right. So yeah, I could absolutely see how that would definitely make these things devolve into very, very bad places. And you were saying about passion. I mean, where do you think you'll find passionate people? Someplace like a source tree for the kernel. Like, that is all about passion. Because a lot of times these people aren't paid. They just contribute things that they think are useful to the kernel. And why would you do that if not for passion?
Right, exactly. Now, what's going to come of this? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I think all of this, I'm going to take my ball and go home, is a lot of fluff.
Generally, in these things, I have faith that they're going to work out. Maybe it's just because I'm a little more optimistic. But in the past, when we see things like this that look horrible, before the world collapses, somebody figures it out. So I'm hoping that's the case here.
Right. And there may be some people who just say, you know, I'm going to take my ball and go home, and they will. But somebody will jump in and fix that hole.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, keep in mind, I don't know that they can retroactively do it either. So the kernels that are already out there and published are going to continue to work.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how that works. What it could come down to is a legal thing, right? So they can't come into your RHEL system and pull out the pieces of code that they wrote, but they can say you're not allowed to use that code anymore, and then everyone's going to be expected to stop using that code, right? So you're right. It's not going to like turn off the internet, but it could make every device that's currently online all of a sudden a legal problem.
Right. I believe there are. I believe if I was reading correctly somewhere, there's legal framework to sort of say, look, you can't. We realize it's your code and your contribution, but you can't just like everybody's using it. You can't just suddenly make it all illegal.
Right.
There may be some case law in place already that prevents that. And I'm not a lawyer, but there may be already something in place that says, look, you can't just take your ball and go home and expect the entire world to turn around and stop using what you've built.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably come down to something like, yeah, okay, the next release of the kernel won't have your code in it. And we'll figure out what to do with that. And maybe it'll set back kernel development for a while, but it's not going to be the doom scenario that this article seems to suggest.
Right.
The kill switch.
Yeah. Kill switch.
All right. Speaking of the Linux kernel, from the Hacker News, unless we had any more to say about the kill switch.
No, let's move on to the more doom and gloom.
Yeah, more doom and gloom. So apparently, this article is from September 26th. I didn't look at the CVE to see when it's dated. And of course, they don't link to the CVE in the article. Well, anyway, there's a new kernel vulnerability, folks. Guess what? It's like a buffer overflow that could lead to privilege escalation. Stop me when you've heard this before. Let's see. They got a name for it. Mutagen Astronomy. And I think they're running out of names because I can't figure out where that name came from. I don't know that there's much astronomy in Linux kernel that they would link that to. But anyway, there is proof of concept code. This does sound like a nasty thing. I don't know that it is remotely executable, but it has been around for a very long time, since July of 2007.
Oh, Nate, there is a link to the CV, but we don't have access.
Oh, that's handy.
Permission denied.
This doesn't have a symbol or a picture or anything associated with it, and there's no theme music, so this is not a real vulnerability.
Obviously, it's not. It's not.
Yep.
Let's move on.
Yeah, so has to do with the kernel's create elf tables function. It's, bad stuff. So it sounds like there may already be fixes for it because they say the date range is from July 2007 to July of 2017. So I don't know if that means it's already been fixed and it was just discovered, and patches for older kernels need to be applied. I don't know. So, but things like RHEL, for example, that are still on a Linux 3 kernel, not the newer Linux 4 kernel, could still be vulnerable. I think even the latest release of RHEL is still on a 3.x kernel. So, yeah, they call out RHEL, CentOS, of course, because they're practically the same thing, and Debian. I guess maybe that would include Ubuntu. I don't know. They don't call it directly.
Yeah, look, if you have a Linux kernel, you're probably vulnerable.
Yeah, sounds that way.
But it's yet another local privilege escalation. So
yet another.
You need an external vulnerability that can get you onto the box before you can take advantage of it.
Yeah. So this isn't end of the world. Somebody would need to get into your machine first, but then, of course, this is just one other way for them to escalate privileges. So not great, but also not necessarily the end of the world.
Right.
If you're running WordPress, maybe they can just hop right in there, right? That's what we're led to believe.
So can we coin a term, guys? Can we coin an acronym here?
We could.
We could if you have one in mind, or we could spend the next 20 minutes coming up with one.
Nope.
Is that?
I say if we see these local privilege escalation vulnerabilities, we call them Yelps. Yet another local privilege. Yeah, okay, you get it from there. I'm done.
Well, we're gonna have to call it a Yelp because you can't say it.
Thank you.
Would that be more like a Yelp? Y-A-L-P? Yet another local
Yelp.
privilege.
That's what I meant. What did I say? E?
Yelpay?
Yelpay. Yelpay.
The Yelpay. I don't know if that works. You're gonna have to go back to work on that one. It just doesn't work right.
All right.
It's spelled too funny.
Can we create a hashtag on Twitter? Start a trend. Yelpay.
Sure. You go ahead. Try to. I will retweet it if you do. How's that sound?
Deal.
Okay. Now, we've never talked about Facebook on this podcast before, right? That's not like a common trend or anything.
Is that like MySpace?
Yeah, it's like
Tom's your friend, right?
It's like okay, so our last story for tonight is from Slashdot. Basically, did you know that Facebook keeps a shadow profile of people? Because Facebook will tell you that they don't.
Really? How do they do that? Do they take like somebody's phone number or something and then like, associate it somehow with friends and weird things like that? I mean, is that even like a theory?
Oh, wait, here. I'm sorry. The original article is from Gizmodo. I found it on Slashdot. Anyway, right. So now I clicked on a link and it's going to like make noise, isn't it? No, maybe not. I must have locked out.
My ears.
Huh?
Ow, my ears.
Oh, because of the noise. All right. So anyway, yeah, the writer of the article had conducted himself a little experiment. He wanted to try to target, I think he said a professor that he was working with. Was it a professor? Yes, computer science professor. He wanted to try to target this computer science professor that he was working with a Facebook ad. And the way he wanted to go about it was to try to prove that Facebook was keeping sort of shadow profiles. So he had done it in such a way that he put in information that he knew was tied to this professor as his target, because so on Facebook, apparently when you run an ad, you can do something like, say you're a business and you've got a bunch of customer contact info. You can do something like plug all that contact info in as like the search base for your ad. And then it'll try to find those people on Facebook and run your ad to them, right? So imagine the example they use is like you're a clothing store and you have a list of all your, people who have given you their information. You can say, advertise your new dress to those people specifically. And what Facebook will try to do is figure out who they are based on the contact information you gave them and promote the ad to them. So what he did here is he took a phone number that he knew was associated with this professor, but the professor knew he'd never given to Facebook. And he plugged that in as the target for his ad. And apparently within a few hours, the professor was starting to see that ad on Facebook. And what this tells them is that Facebook does indeed keep shadow profiles of folks. Now, I don't know exactly how that links to a shadow profile. I guess the assumption is that somehow Facebook had gathered that number, maybe from like a phone book or something, or like an online directory, and they'd linked it to that person, even though the person never gave it to Facebook. And so this, to them, says, yep, Facebook is totally using shadow profiles or whatever you want to call them, even though Facebook claims they do no such thing. So, surprise, Facebook is being shady.
Facebook being shady? That's unheard of. They're honest. They're
impossible,
very open
right?
and transparent about their privacy policies. Even the U.S. government couldn't find fault.
Indeed.
Sorry.
This whole shadow profile thing is not
nothing new.
Yeah, I mean this is just another example of some of the stuff that they do. Some of this.
Can I add something here? No. Another example of being a product to not being a product of something you don't understand the impact of. And I'm not picking on people. I'm not, saying, "Oh, you're terrible for being part of that." But this is like a reality check. Like I just don't think people will believe it unless there's some kind of article, or some discussion, right? It's always like, "Oh, I don't think so," or "Okay." I mean, there are groups of people like ourselves that do understand that, but it's just, I don't know. I don't think there's an understanding of the impact of it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Facebook user. I don't have a Facebook profile. I had a Facebook profile for 2 weeks and deleted it. Now, whether Facebook actually deleted it, I have no idea. I'm not logging in to find out. And that was years ago.
Why not? They have your data.
But right,
it's right there.
But I know that they are, like, I get Facebook stuff all the time.
Hey Jason, they know your phone number.
Yeah, probably.
They say, "Oh, hey, is this you? Click here."
Yeah. Yep. So, like, a lot of these services, I know I'm the product because I use the internet. Period.
Yep. Pretty much.
That's what it's coming down to. Yep. That's kind of why I like. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. I'm sure Jason's probably at least heard. Firefox, one of the most recent builds, has built-in functionality now where certain sites can be sort of containerized, so that tab containerizes the data that is exchanged with say Facebook. And Facebook is one of the sites that it does it by default. It is on by default. If you go to Facebook or one of Facebook's services, it almost opens it in a private tab, but not quite. It's like it's walled off. It's a walled off tab, so that it can't do things like go get your Amazon cookies and advertise for you that way or whatever. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool direction that Firefox took with that. And they've extended that to say, like, any page, any tab you open, you can open up in a separate container where you can, like, I believe, there's named types of containers, so like personal finance, that kind of thing. I believe that things that are within those containers can talk to each other, but they can't talk to everything else in your browser, which I think is kind of cool. I think it's nice to see someone who cares about our privacy instead of just looking at us as a product.
It would be interesting if there was a step further taken, and instead of having just like a software driven aid like that, also incorporating some type of transport as well. I know it would be probably costly to do that, kind of like a reverse Cloudflare, right? Where everybody comes from like a set of IP addresses, so you can obfuscate that. Everybody has just like a neutral wall, if you will, right?
Don't they call that Tor?
They do, but yeah, but I'm talking about like a real usable solution that isn't focused on just being an enemy for or having an enemy. I can even say that for
It's not like a thing that lives under the ocean.
Yeah. You are not wrong, sir. You are not wrong. Yes. Anyways, but it would be interesting though, like if you had like a community based or I don't want to say open source, but just a widely accepted route for your traffic, right? I'm sure it would be very hard to support something like that for a lot of people, but it would be pretty cool to see that, like just somebody being the anti targeted ad, anti meta, right, if you will, and just kind of be like that representation there for that. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, could be.
I wouldn't mind seeing banner ads if I go to websites. Remember the days of the website, what do they call that? Where if there was a search engine, a web search product put in place to protect you from or prevent you from going to categorized websites, it's a website you can go to, like it's a browser in a browser. I can't think of what those were called. You know what I'm talking about?
Browser in a browser. That's a bib.
I could probably use one.
No, Justin, I really don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so back in my days of middle school and high school, you guys were already dealing with Eevee certs. There was a way to obfuscate web filters, and they were always driven by knowing websites, right? And a lot of times the administrators
I know what you mean.
Yeah, a lot of the times the administrators wouldn't block like unrecognized websites because then they'd have to like constantly whitelist stuff, right? Because people are always saying, "I can't get to this, I can't get to this." So one way around of those content filters was I don't know what the hell they were called. It was like a proxy, right? Where you could just use
proxy,
a web.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like a proxy. Web.
Yeah, you'd go to a web page, which you would then give it a URL, and then the server that's serving the web page would go get the content and display it to you within that web page. It was almost like a container.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it was right.
So like all you had to do was make sure you could get to that one page, and then from that page you'd get to anything.
And that was usually very successful because it was always some really weird domain, and it was just never really picked up on right away.
Yeah, I remember these things. That was basically to try to get around content filters. When I was in high school, they didn't have content filters like that.
Well, they didn't have electricity, so I mean,
no, they totally had electricity. No, but content filtering wasn't at that level.
That was from back in the day where you could put things up like that, and people would use it, to get around content filters and goofiness like that.
Well,
wouldn't really use it maliciously.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you put one of those up, guaranteed the cops will be at your door arresting you for child pornography, Bitcoin mining, and anything else they can do.
Right. For sure.
Right.
Why are you hiding all your datas? Because I want to, damn it.
Well, no, because people would use it for that. They would gateway through
they would
do all kinds of nasty stuff.
They
trace it back to you. You'd be in all kinds of deep trouble.
Oh yeah, because well, geez, isn't that a thing now? This sounds strangely familiar.
Yeah, it's called Tor. Didn't I just tell you that?
I figured you would add to that. That was a smashing success. Anyways,
smashing. Okay,
smashing.
All right, so I think that covers the news, folks. Unless we want to talk more about browser and Tor and Facebook stealing all your data. No? All right then.
Move on. Do it.
All right.
Oh, by the way, I know we've transitioned, but can you play it backwards and I'll say what I found? You should do that sometime really fast. Anyway,
I don't know if I could.
kproxy.com. There you go. kproxy.com is an example of what I was talking about. Not something I was familiar with because they didn't have browser extensions, but
totally not going to go there.
Meh. All right, play it again.
No, okay. No, that's
not. Wait, this is the announcement thing, right?
Yeah.
Wait, what? All right.
Hey, announcements.
DerbyCon.
DerbyCon. Right? There's nothing at all going on.
Yeah.
Next week?
There's totally nothing.
It's just going to be a
Kentucky conference.
It's going to be a boring week coming up. So on Wednesday is the next DEF CON 610 meetup.
Nice.
No. Oh, that's December. Yeah. No, you're right. It is.
Man, you're getting way ahead of us. Yes, October's has not moved.
Life is really hard.
October 3rd, right? Is that Wednesday? I think that's Wednesday.
Yes.
Yes. So October 3rd is the next
meetup.
As usual at Two Rivers Brewing in Easton, Pennsylvania. Pretty cool meetup. I'm not going to be there because the next day, early in the morning, I am loading up my wife's Nissan Pathfinder with the two fine gentlemen that are also on this podcast, plus one more, and we are driving our asses to Louisville. Yes, we're driving 12 hours to Louisville, and there will be metal, and there will be DerbyCon.
Yes.
And it will be awesome.
Mead and bourbon.
Mead and bourbon. No, I think I am not touching any mead this year.
Well, you can have mead,
just not as much of it as last year.
Don't drink all of it at once.
Yes, that was a problem. Mead goes down so smooth.
Oh,
yes.
Not that other crap Jason was drinking. What
was I drinking?
I don't know. It was awful. It came in a plastic bottle. It tasted like paint.
Look, gross. When you've drank that much, everything doesn't. You can't taste anything again. Whatever.
I can count on two fingers the number of times I have drank so much that I had to vomit. One of them was at DerbyCon last year. The other one I was like 22.
Yeah, you beat me by one.
Yeah.
I beat you both by 4.
Forget that. I do not like to drink that much.
I don't either.
I drank too fast last year. Should have known better.
Yeah,
Simple
well.
as that.
Yep. Oh, there's a security conference that goes around all this drinking too.
Oh,
Where we
yeah.
learn things.
Yeah, right.
Gotta mention that. So this year is a new location next door to the old location.
Yeah, right. New location, just as good as the old location.
And there's tickets out there if you're still interested in going. You kind of have to troll around on Twitter to find them.
Yeah, you'll find people that bought them hoping they could go and can't go. Right now is a great time to try to find tickets because there's a lot of people like, damn it, I tried to hold out, but I just can't go.
Yep. So Vanilla Ice will be there.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yep. So that's gonna be interesting.
Oh yeah, the crowds will be interesting.
And
yeah, it should be fun. It should be a good con. So Vanilla Ice and also Offspring, right? Did I miss that? Were you just saying that? I was reading the YouTube chat.
Seriously, Offspring?
That's the word.
Really? That's awesome.
I mean, I'm trying to verify that right now, and I clicked on the link from last year that was supposed to be Busta Rhymes, who Busta didn't show.
He busted his ride.
So I schedule special events. Not what I'm looking for. Keep talking, guys, while I look for this.
I'm totally looking too.
Am I?
It's not in special events?
Serious podcasting here.
Yeah, no, right. We're all browsing the internet.
Speaker layout schedule. No.
Holy crap, this schedule is weird.
So
it's not on here yet. For whatever reason. I can't remember what the other day was, which is unfortunate.
I'm telling you, I'm almost certain that it is.
So put it in our YouTube chat. Busta didn't show. The money was refunded. The refunded money was used to book Vanilla Ice and the Offspring.
No. Well, no. Yeah, I guess that was it. The refunded money was
Saturday.
I was thinking about. So Busta Rhymes had like all these demands for alcohol that had to be there, so we all got to drink his alcohol.
Yeah. So
which
and then
kind of cool.
Saturday night will be Offspring. Yeah, I just found it on Twitter.
See that? Everyone's talking about Vanilla Ice because it's funny, but the Offspring is the main event, and that's going to be pretty cool.
Oh man, I can't wait. That's awesome.
So it should be.
Oh, and there's going to be like a whole bunch of talks about security stuff.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, yeah. Right, the security. We're going to secure things and solve all the security problems.
I did make sort of a brief look over the schedule, and there are some really cool talks coming. There's one on WordPress security, which I'm really interested in attending. The awesome thing about DerbyCon is that all of the talks are recorded and published so quickly, and some of them are streamed, that you can pretty much go to this conference, connect with people, have conversations in the lobby and whatever through the whole con, and not miss any of the content.
Yep.
Which is great because, to be honest, if DerbyCon had no talks and it was just bring all the people together and chat about things and talk and interact, I would still go because it's just the crowd is just that great. I mean, that's like over the years that I've been going to DerbyCon, I've been going to fewer talks and meeting more awesome people.
Indeed, many awesome people to meet. And just hang out. I mean, it's
cool conference.
Indeed.
So, and then following that conference in November, on the 9th and 10th, is B-Sides Delaware.
Listen, you'll get your own episode to talk about B-Sides.
Okay. I just telling you it's there.
No, B-Sides is awesome. We talked. I think we talked about this. Yeah, because it had just been announced last time we recorded.
I'm gonna go home now.
Just don't take any of your kernel commits. Go home.
I hereby own the rights to everything that I've said in this podcast and demand that you remove it immediately.
But you can't do it unless you have a flag.
Guess I better get started. Sorry, guys. Show's over. I got a lot of work to do. I got to remove Jason.
I don't have a flag. There's a flag here somewhere. Anyway,
I have an arrow.
I was an adventurer like you once until I took an arrow to the knee. Yeah. So matter of fact, I'm actually going to drop out of our conversation here so you guys can talk about the cloud because I have to go plan B-Sides.
You're gonna. Did my mic just die? My mic just died.
Your mic just did weird things.
That's odd. Hang on.
Yay! He left. Oh, he's back.
Can you actually? You can't hear me, right?
I can hear you now. Technical support.
How about that?
Oh wow,
man! When there is, can you hear me? Okay, is this question
better? Yes.
Yes. Okay. When there's humidity for whatever reason, this XLR connector gets weird.
You have to blow on it like.
And it's humid. You have to you got to pull it out and blow in it.
Hit the reset button. Damn game.
Yeah, right.
Nintendo XLR cables.
Nintendo XLR cables. So Jason's gonna go. What the hell?
Yeah.
Not that.
Yeah, it's a thing.
All right.
So.
All right.
You guys enjoy the cloud.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All the clouds.
Bye, Jason.
Bye, mate.
Go enjoy your planning call.
Oh, good fun.
Plan around,
gang.
And he's gone. Okay, now we can talk about him.
that guy.
That guy cuts out of our podcast on us. All right, so we didn't even get to the. I guess we could just call that the chat section, huh? It went from announcements into chat.
Perfect.
So I'm gonna play our music again. Don't talk this time. People are noticing.
Yes, I've noticed.
All right, so way back in our early episodes, almost 2 years ago at this point, we had talked about the decision that needs to be made when you're standing up a new service as to whether you host it locally or whether you host it in the cloud. And it's been, 2 years almost, as I stated. And, the industry changes, opinions change, times change. I figured we might rehash that. I was hoping to have a full complement of hosts to do so. But now it's just me and Dustin.
Oh boy.
So Dustin, you weren't around for that episode, so hopefully you'll have some fresh perspective. I was hoping that Jason and Charles would also be here. Charles is on vacation, I believe, so he's out. And Jason obviously had his phone call to get to. So
that's okay.
Yeah. The basic gist here is old-time sysadmins like myself, and I guess to some extent you, Dustin.
Not as much.
We love our servers and we love our data centers and we love having physical access to our machines. And because of that, some of us don't like the idea of moving our data to the cloud. However, you can't ignore the fact that the cloud does have its benefits. And, well, even if it's a short topic tonight, I figured we'd chat a little bit about if those opinions had changed at all. I believe when we covered it the first time, I said something along the lines of you have to think about the privacy of your data, the sensitivity of your data, and of course, cost. And I'm still mostly of that opinion, but there's also the angle of the cost to build out a data center. And I think I covered that as well when we talked about it the first time. And that's basically if you're a new startup or a new business or whatever, you're building new infrastructure, it doesn't make as much sense anymore to invest a ton of money into a data center and all of the things that go with it, the power and the cooling and the battery backups and the local, tape backups and the redundancy and the network infrastructure. There's a lot of money to invest there. Now, if you need that level of access or that level of privacy, then I guess it makes sense. But all this has to weigh into how you're building, why you're building, and what you're hosting. And then, of course, what enters into that is more and more, we have more software as a service where either it's really cheap or you flat out don't have a choice and you have to host with whoever is providing the software. Things like Google Drive comes to mind, G Suite. You can't host G Suite locally. You have to use it on Google's platform. So Dustin, I don't know, do you have any input to give on this particular decision-making process?
Yeah, so we actually at my org recently reevaluated using somebody else's computer for
Right.
our applications. And for us, I gave it a very honest and very thorough look at the numbers, holistically, right? So you talk about the hardware cost, software, licensing, uh, administrative overhead, which also turns into people, right? Your
Yeah.
resources. For us, it didn't make sense for really a few fold issues. One of them being software licensing, as well as what our usual refresh cycle is, right? So we're not an org that requires the latest and greatest hardware. We don't have data crunching issues. If anything, we have storage issues. Everybody has storage issues, right? Data grows, email
Yeah.
servers, right?
Yep.
So that is a reality for us. But when it comes to compute horsepower and what we're maintaining and continuing to support, we're pretty much okay. I mean, our biggest thing and biggest hurdle for anybody, if you're only requiring just horsepower and not a lot of other demands, is your hardware aging, right? So typically, processor support is around for a long time when you consider using hypervisor applications, straight out server clusters, container orchestration, etc. So if you have the compute resources and it's not a major scaling issue, which some organizations have, they have scaling issues, or they have to scale up really quickly, have to scale down very quickly to save costs. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, insert a million different variables. We found that it was still less expensive for us to maintain an internal infrastructure. Now, one thing did change as far as building out like an actual DR site, right? Like an actual warm DR site where there's similar hardware and the ability
Right.
to run things. We are actually considering doing that in the cloud. And doing it in a very automated way or orchestrated way. So instead of having something that's on all the time, maybe have like images that are sitting there and have either some scripting. I say scripting, but that's not the choice words. Some I'm trying to think of agnostic terms, brand agnostic terms, not linked.
Good luck with that. This is IT.
Right. Yeah, so there are ways to leverage that for that type of scenario, and I think that will work for us. There's still a lot of research and digging I have to do, but for us, it didn't make sense. Now, for bigger entities like yours, right? I mean, you guys could probably leverage it for dev. You can leverage it for projects. I mean, even outside of using it as your production cluster, I mean, there's definitely benefits of you having the excess capacity when you need it instead of having to lease hardware and do all those crazy things, which we'll also talk about
So
what AT is doing too. But
just to pause you for a second there, you mentioned having your production data local and having your sort of hot spares or your DR in the cloud. And I think that warrants a little bit more discussion. That's actually not a bad idea, right? So
not
for a very long time, the college where I work, we've had two data centers. And there's always been discussion, how do we leverage the two data centers? And really what it's turned into is more or less one big logical data center. We have a whole lot of throughput between the two data centers. They're not very far apart, but they could be used as, an active and passive or an active and hot spare or like an HA pair, right? But the bottom line is it's twice as expensive to run two data centers as it is to run one data center. And when you're treating them as one logical data center, it kind of makes sense to have it all in one data center and then have spares in the cloud that are just sitting there powered off and waiting for failure. Right. And then you power them up in the event of an emergency. I think that's a great use for something like AWS.
No, I totally agree, and I think that's always a very hurting spot, a very hurtful spot for many organizations is having to maintain that second set of hardware, having to ensure they have the capacity and capability to restore services quickly, because everybody has their own set of guidelines when it comes to what's an applicable failure rate, right? What is the SLA that they have to maintain so their business can be successful, and every place is different, right? So that can be a very big driver, right? As far as how you one treat your DR scenarios, and two how you're actually taking your data offsite for backups. I mean, those are definitely worth further discussions, separate topics. Even if you look at high availability, hybrid cloud strategy, right? Still, and that's a totally another discussion as well. But point being, less hardware when you can leverage something that you can scale very quickly is great if it makes sense for your business. And there's really no right answer. There's really no wrong answer. I think just like anything else, proper planning, proper research is necessary to really make or break your organization's requirements. And yeah, but okay. So let's talk about just real quickly, right? Let's talk about a high availability scenario via cloud, right? What becomes very vital when you leverage another data center? What's the most vital thing?
The most vital thing when you leverage a second data center, well, it would be the ability to replicate the data between the two, I would think.
So communication, right? So
Yeah.
you rely on whatever means that is. I mean, if you use a public cloud provider, chances are you're not going to be paying for any type of private circuit. You're going to be using the open internet. And yes,
Yep.
set up all the tunnels you want, set up whatever. You still have to have that as part of your infrastructure to, have some type of planning around. So yeah, ISPs have failures. There is physical things that occur. If you can have multiple paths for connectivity, that's great too. It really is something that I think a lot of people forget about. Even applications as a service too. Yes, it may be cheaper licensing wise and high level resource requirements. Sorry, I got distracted.
Yeah, it's easy. You've got a screaming baby, and I'm looking at you.
Oh, you hit your mic again. Hold on, technical difficulties.
My back now? That Dustin's muted or gone or something.
You there?
There you are. Okay.
Hold on.
Sorry, folks.
Nate, I'm sorry. If you want to continue, I'll be right back.
Great. How am I supposed to continue with no one to chat with? All right, folks. We're going to have to pause for a moment while Dustin goes and deals with his screaming child. Don't worry, we'll fix it in post. So we're going to give Dustin a minute to come back. I think we're probably going to wrap the show up once he's back because he's got a screaming baby to deal with. And you guys don't want to listen to me drone on, do you?
Hello.
He has returned. All right, Dustin. We'll try to wrap this up, okay? Does that sound good? Is that good enough? All right.
Sounds good. Sorry, guys.
All right. So the only other thing I really wanted to touch on when it comes to leveraging on-prem and off-prem is this whole promise of hybrid cloud. I don't know about you, but I heard a lot of the marketing buzzwords when everybody started pushing that early on, and I don't know that it ever really materialized. So, Dustin, you did mention hybrid cloud. Have you actually seen anybody really leverage a truly hybrid cloud?
Um, in practice, no.
Right. So oh, we're going to be able to run on-prem and burst to the cloud and things like that. I've never seen that. I've never actually seen that happen. If anybody listening or watching has, please let me know where you have, because I'd love to see it.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a discussion about it. I mean, Amazon has their own Linux image that you can now download and run on your own hardware, allowing that, centralized management and a number of other crazy automations that can be leveraged. But it'd be interesting to actually see that, in a production standpoint. Even VMware, right? VMware's touted it for years, the whole hybrid cloud thing, right? Public private cloud for what, 4 years, 5 years? I mean,
Red Hat pushed it hard a couple years ago, and then they kind of got silent on it. And I could definitely see like an OpenStack local on-prem deployment that you use the same API calls, or at least similar API calls, to extend things into the cloud, like on AWS or something like that. But I don't know. I'm not seeing anybody using it. So yeah, if anybody is, or if anyone knows anyone that is, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to see how that works and how you're doing it, or how others are doing it. And I think we probably want to wrap it up. Hey, we've got a guest on the show now.
we do. Say hello. There you
Hello,
go.
guy. Go ahead and bounce on the computer chair. All right, folks. I think we're going to call it a night because life happens. If you guys want to hear us talk more about the cloud, maybe we'll revisit it next time. Although next time we record, we're probably going to be talking all about DerbyCon.
Yeah.
If we can manage it, we're going to try to, I think, generate some content while we're at DerbyCon. I'm going to bring my voice recorder. There's always a podcasters meetup that happens at DerbyCon. We missed it last year. Maybe we'll get in on it this year. I really wanted to get stickers and shirts and stuff to bring with us this year, but I just dropped the ball and never got it done. So
that's okay, Nate. No biggie.
Yeah, right. We've had enough going on, right? The Hack Your Derby contest is really the forefront because that's an accepted workshop at DerbyCon, and we gotta show up in force for that. So yeah, I think.
I mean, have we mentioned that before about the Derby? I think we have.
Yeah, I think we mentioned Hack Your Derby is ours this year, and we will be running it as long as we get everything together in the next week.
I mean, the foundation of the contest is still there, and it's still living.
Yeah, we're waiting on. So we have prizes that we're going to give out. We're waiting on them to get delivered, or even in some cases ordered. The Hack My Derby project that I always make is wrapped into the contest this year. It's going to be like a CTF, a small CTF that goes along with Hack Your Derby, but it's going to run in a derby, which is why it's related. I still have to write pretty much all my flags, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, I'm trying to help, but yeah.
No, we're all busy. I should have been working on it for months, and I haven't because I've been busy with family and work and lots of things. So,
well, I have things ready. I just have to play, and unfortunately, I understand where to go with how it works and how you're using it. I just have to apply it and make.
Well, it's basically what has to happen then is while we're driving to DerbyCon, you'll have 12 hours in the car to code. So get on that.
Okay.
Don't vomit all over the inside of my wife's Nissan.
I'll try not to. I'll bring bags.
All right, folks. I think that's it for tonight. If you like what we're doing, please feel free to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/IronSysadmin. If you want to watch us record live, we do this on the second and fourth Wednesday of every month on youtube.com. Well, I guess you just have to search for Iron Sysadmin. If you go to ironsysadmin.com/YouTube, we're not special enough to have a custom YouTube URL yet because we don't have enough subscribers.
Not yet.
Not yet. We'll get there. I think it's 100 subscribers, and we're probably nowhere near that. I haven't looked recently, to be honest.
Service we can use to, I didn't just say that out loud. I'm kidding.
Everybody make a bunch of fake YouTube accounts and subscribe to Iron Sysadmin. We haven't asked for that in a long time. So, yeah. So, the usuals. If you want to find us on Twitter, ironsysadmin.com. Sorry, twitter.com/ironsysadmin. You can find me at Gangriff.
And you
Dustin,
can find
you want to
Agent 66, the word 66. 60,
right.
Yeah, the
Cool.
numbers.
We won't announce Jason's because he always likes to make a joke out of how it's spelled.
And if you want to see me continuingly to bounce on the ball next podcast, maybe we'll have a poll.
Yeah, right. We'll just make your kid part of the show. I can bring in one of my kids, and Jason can bring in one of his kids.
That's
and
right.
Charles could bring in his cat. All right, folks. I think that's it for tonight. Yeah. If you want to connect with us at DerbyCon, you can either look us up. I'm on the DerbyCon Slack channel as the same avatar I use elsewhere, Gangriff. You can also hook up with us via Twitter or the Iron Sysadmin Slack channel, and we can chat and meet up. That would be cool. Last year we were still pretty new when we got to DerbyCon, and I don't think anyone really knew about us, but we've gained a bit of traction. Oh, right, we have a Reddit subreddit now, right?
We do.
Justin, you created that? I actually started using Reddit, which is sort of weird. I got in an argument over religion already.
Wow, you're a regular user on there, Nate.
Yeah. So yeah, what is it? Reddit.com/r/sysadmin? Iron Sysadmin?
Still have to get the logos on it, but it's red in color on mobile, so there's a start.
Oh, good. That's a good start. So yeah, you can find us on Reddit now. Maybe I'll make a link somewhere on ironsysadmin.com that'll redirect you there, like I do for everything else. So yeah, I think I'm finally going to say yes, the show is over for tonight. So everyone who joined us on YouTube and chatted with us, thanks for joining. We will do that. There has been some question about whether the proper place to chat with us is. I'm going to say it right now. The YouTube chat while we're live is the place to chat with us. You can chat with us on Slack, but there's no guarantee we're going to be looking at it. We're going to be watching the YouTube channel while we're doing this. So that's where you'll want to chat with us while we're live. Otherwise, look us up on Slack and we can chat there, when we're not recording live. So yeah, I think we're going to call it a night. Thank you everybody for watching and listening, and we will catch you next week.
Yes, thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right. Thank you, folks, for watching and chatting with us. It's been fun, if not distracting.
Always.
That's the downside to having chat available. It's distracting while you're trying to record, but it's cool to interact with you guys. So that's awesome.
It's a good distraction. It's worth it.
Yes, it's definitely a good distraction. I don't know if we would ever consider like some sort of dedicated chat, but yeah, I don't know. I think the YouTube chat works okay. Especially, I think it maintains that history so that when the show is still available on YouTube, you can see the chat. So that's handy too.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is.
So, all right, folks. Good night, and thanks for watching.
Good night, everybody. Thanks.